So the annual review might be over or still ongoing. Regardless, you might have reviewed yourself, your peers, your managers, or team members. Everything felt right, at least that's what you thought in the first place. Especially when you read the positive reviews from your peers, manager, or team members, you will probably tell yourself that you deserve them because you've been working so hard and therefore getting better at whatever you're doing. But when you read the negative ones, you couldn't help yourself but wonder with lots of thoughts and questions. I don't need to explain to anyone why I deserve this opportunity. I've been working very hard on this. How could he have such a low opinion of me? How could he jump to such a conclusion and attack my personality? The only reason I failed to deliver was that no one was there to support me. They are the most demeaning people on earth, obviously. Everyone should avoid working with them at all costs. Believe it or not, similar thoughts and questions might fill the head of those you have reviewed. This has been 2 weeks into the new year, and still none of you seems able to figure out why. Allowing someone to belittle others by downplaying their achievements and inflating their mistakes is a toxic in the work culture of any organization, and the cost is too high. People cannot focus on their work because they're busy wondering. Even worse, they might start keeping distance from each other until one day they eventually burn bridges. Is there any way to avoid paying the price? Obviously yes, and that's why I'm here today to talk about attribution bias that indeed often burn bridges, not only at work but also in other places where we live our daily lives. There are several types of attribution bias, and I'll describe them one by one with real-life examples, consequences, and solutions. So let me start by explaining what attribution is. Attribution is about giving credit. There are two types of attributions, internal and external. Some others classify it into personal, which is internal, and situational or external. In psychology, the attribution is about assigning motives or reasons to actions or situations to make them logical and easier to understand. In other words, it is an interpretative process of explaining the causes of behavior or events. As human beings, we do it now and then. How we relate, translate, and make sense of behavior or events and everything else in our social world, however, affects our thinking and behavior. Sometimes we are in control of our behavior. That is internal attribution. Other times, however, we are not. Circumstances around us make us behave in a certain way, and that is external. Unfortunately, attribution is different when we make judgments about the causes of our behavior from when we judge the behavior of others. There is evidence that when we explain the cause of ours or the behavior of our group and that of other groups, we show attributional biases that favor ourselves. Now and then, here and there, we overestimate the weight of someone's personality traits and underestimate the influence of their circumstances. Even worse, we tend to make distorted judgments about others' behaviors, which are significantly contradictory to the general population. An attribution bias, also called attributional bias, is a cognitive bias due to systematic errors in explaining the reasons for the behavior and that of others. We systematically overuse or underuse the available information in explaining behavior. For example, we tend to assume or explain a person's behavior based on the actions alone while referring to their characters rather than any situational factor. Attributing actions to someone's character can lead to underestimating people, including those not strategic for us to underestimate. The consequences are damaged relationships, ineffective work, and unmet objectives. We may put ourselves in danger because we underestimate our competitors and those who may harm us. That is where we need to learn about attribution theory. On a high level, the attribution theory explains how we human beings attribute feelings and intentions to others to understand their behaviors. It is necessary for individuals as it let us beware of the underlying processes and biases that lead to our inferences. Meanwhile, for organizations, it can help managers understand some of the causes of employee behavior and assist employees in understanding their thinking about the behaviors. There are several types of attribution bias, but today I would like to highlight 3 of them. The first one is self-serving bias. Self-serving bias is one of the most common phenomena that makes someone disregard the role of luck or external forces in their success and attribute success story solely to their strengths and work. Don't get me wrong, celebrating achievements is human, Athletes and high-performing professionals do that. Whenever they win a game, they attribute their win to hard work and practice. So when you read positive reviews from your peers and managers and tell yourself that you deserve it because you have worked so hard that you are getting better at it, that is human. However, when you read the negative ones on your failure to deliver, will you honestly acknowledge that it was your fault? Or will you blame everyone and everything else? If the answer is the first one, that is fair. However, if you say that it was because you didn't get the support you needed or that people didn't like you, you have been the subject of self-serving bias. The second example is when your car breaks down on the freeway. If you say it is because you are too ignorant about your cars, you are making an internal attribution. That is fair. However, if you say it is because the car is too old or the road is too bumpy, you are making an external attribution to blame everything and everyone else but you. That is unfair, and that indicates self-serving bias. The third one is fundamental attribution error. Too much focus on internal factors leads to fundamental attribution errors. You know you are prone to such an error when you confuse this positional attribution to situational attribution or vice versa. In most cases, you tend to judge others' behavior as reflections of their characters or personalities. Hence, it is obvious why and how fundamental attribution error leads to social conflict. It makes people unfairly blame others for negative behaviors that might be due to external factors or situational factors. So here are some tips to avoid attribution bias and the price you have to pay. Practice self-awareness. The people you observe are human beings like you as well. Recognize the bias. It presents in each individual in varying degrees, obviously. Challenge your story. Whatever you have in mind, ask yourself, have you considered everything, internal and external factors? Focus on objective facts. When evaluating someone's achievements or failures, focus on the factual situational information you have in front of you. Verify. Whenever possible, ask the person you are judging and give them a chance to explain from their points of view, avoiding blaming others. You can subscribe to my YouTube channel to get more insights into human behavior, human experience, research, data, marketing, and content. See you in the video, and cheers.